So there's a story that I've shared with some of us over the years. It's one of my utterly favorite stories. And I want to tell it to you a little bit slowly because it matters. And I want to ask also, if I can literally like feel it in my body. You know, if we've been together for a few years and you've heard the story, don't think I get the story, right? The nature of a story is in the lineage tradition. We tell a story not for information. The story reveals herself anew each time. And the story is called Ma'aseh, the story of Merkava, of the chariot. Every story of the kind I'm about to tell is the mystical entry into the orchard. It's not a casual story. It's not a folk tale, right? It's not a fairy tale, right? It's actually the holder of the chariot. It is. So entering a story is entering the chariot. It's entering a medicine journey. So you enter a story like we enter a medicine journey. Does that make sense? So here we go. So he came to the Baal Shem Tov, the master of the good name, and he came to him on Sunday morning. And the Baal Shem Tov, the master of the good name, of which Martin Buber wrote so much, who emerges from the Carpathian Mountains in Romania, who was a magician, a scientist of particular kind, a realized being of unimaginable depth, right? A master of texts, right? Of enormous sophistication, and a builder of movements, right? And an agitator for Messiah, meaning he was an agitator for the emergence of a new human and a new humanity, right? To climax history and to create the new world. We would call that in our language, right? He wanted to move reality from the third Big Bang, the depth of human self-reflection, into the fourth Big Bang when a new human emerges. We move from Homo sapien, we're sapiens. What it means to be human becomes something more, right? Homo sapien becomes Homo Amor, right? We have this new realization of who we are, which is related to a new realization of needs. So the Baal Shem Tov he didn't use the word Homo Amor, obviously, but this is what he was about. So he had this capacity to look deeply into a person's soul and to know the past, to know the present, to know the future. I try it all the time. It doesn't quite always work. It's a little blurry. But he was very good at it. Okay. And so that this man comes to him and says, no, Rebbe, I just give me a blessing. He doesn't say it so politely, he says a little rudely, just give me a blessing. And the Baal Shem Tov looks at him and he says, you want a blessing? He says, yeah, he's just told you I want a blessing. I'm translating loosely from Yiddish. He says, well, I can tell you where your money went. How do you know? And he was dressed as a tattered beggar. Like, how do you know I had money? He says, I know you had money till several years ago and you lost all your money. I can tell you where it went and what happened. And the man goes white. Chaim, is the name of the beggar. And he says, that's what happened. What? He says, you were in the synagogue. You were in the shul, in the synagogue. And it was Yom Kippur, the day of full zivug gamur, radical union, radical love, radical participation in the entire field of the whole. And on Yom Kippur, we don't eat or drink or, anoint. And so in order to create this, 25-hour fast where we're completely focused on this zivug gamur, this radical union with all that is. But the one thing we do is we taste from the Garden of Eden, right? And what's the taste of the Garden of Eden? Fragrance, smell. So there's always a person in the study hall who walks around with tabak, with this fragrance, this smell, and he gives it to people and they smell, right? And they, right? You haven't eaten, you haven't slept, you're rejuvenated. And so you were walking around the study hall, right? And, everyone's like really needing this tabak, this smell, and you're giving it to people and you're feeling very good. And then you notice in the back that there he was, right? There he was, right? Yankel. And Yankel was with tattered clothes and he smelled a little bit and he was kind of, off in a corner and he was, kind of out of your natural path. So no one really noticed. So you kind of gave everyone a couple of times, to smell the fragrance, to enliven them, but you never went to Yankel. He didn't get there. And so you lost several weeks later all of your money because you had ignored Yankel and not given him to smell, to enliven his being, right? On this day, right? A fast when we're supposed to be connected to the whole, but you were connected to the whole minus the one who just smelled, right? Who didn't feel sophisticated to you, didn't feel appropriate. So it means you weren't connected to the whole. So you lost everything. And you know who has all of your money? Yankel. It all went to him. It went to Yankel. He's like, he could deal with losing his money. It went to Yankel. He's like, he's devastated. Baal Shem Tov says, but I can tell you how to get it back. You can tell me how to get it back. I'll cut you in. No, he doesn't say that, right? He says, okay, tell me how to get it back. He says, go to Yankel, who's now built a beautiful home, and lives, in the city that you used to live in, and just ask him for tabak. Ask him to smell from the spice box, because now he's the person holding the fragrance box. And if you ask him and he does what you did, he doesn't have time to give it to you, the wheel of fortune will move once again and everything will be returned to you. Obviously, Chaim is thrilled because this is not going to be hard, right? He'll just find an inconvenient time. He's already realized that this is good. So he goes and he goes in like 6 a.m. at Yankel's door. And Yankel's got servants, and he said, I need to see Yankel. And no, he's sleeping. No, they demand. He insists. So Yankel kind of walks down bleary-eyed, and he says, I need tub. I need to smell the fragrance. He looks at him and he says, if you ask, you must surely need. He says, wait 1 second. He goes and he gets the tabak. He gives it to him to smell. And Yankel's like, oh my God. He's like shocked. He takes the tabak and he leaves and he says, okay, I've got to plan this a little bit better. And so he figures, okay, this is when Yankel goes to the ritual bath. There's this custom of going to the ritual bath, a ritual immersion. You come out, it's freezing and you're naked and you're kind of going to your towel. And there's this particular kind of junction where you're very vulnerable and very kind of just want your towel. He says, I'll hide in the ritual bath. And as Yankel, right, comes out, right, dripping wet and freezing, it's the middle of the winter, I'll ask for tabak. So he hides, Yankel comes out, Yankel is shivering, right, pops up, Chaim, I need tabak, I need it now, I need tabak. And he says, hold on 1 second. If you ask, you must surely need. And you understand what happened, right? Chaim tried every which way again and again and again, right, to confront Yankel, right, at the most inconvenient and rude and inopportune time. And each time, Yankel would turn to him and say, if you ask, you must surely need, right? So finally, Yankel is marrying off his daughter. And at the wedding, there's something called the mitzvah dance. And the mitzvah dance is when the father dances with his daughter. And the father waits his whole life for this dance. This is what your whole life is about. It's this moment when you've raised this wonderful young woman, and she's now about to create her own new home. And this is kind of the parting. It's the most poignant. And Yankel is with you. You all know what's about to happen, right? He's with his daughter. He's doing the mitzvah dance, and then he comes between father and daughter. Chaim says, I need tabak. Everyone's a little shocked. And you know what Yankel said, right? Yankel said, you're interrupting at this time. You must surely need. And he goes, he gets some tabak, and Chaim faints. They revive him, and he tells Yankel the whole story. And Yankel says, oh, wow. He hears it, he receives it, and he says, listen, I'm now the gvir. I'm now the wealthy patron of this town. I'm going to give you half of my money, and we will both support this town, right, and create this space together. And he does. And it's known in Eastern Europe that in that town, there were 2 gvirim. There were 2 masters of finances, masters of philanthropy who lived in the town. And you could go in the town anytime, day or night, and you could find a place to rest your feet, right? To have your needs heard and felt and spoken to. And that humiliation we feel in getting our basic needs met was completely liberated in this town. If you ask, you must surely need. Now, stay with me. I'm going to read you something. Okay, now it gets a little wild. It gets a little beautiful. So who is in that circle of if you ask, you must surely need? So is it 2 beloveds? That would be a high level, right? Wow. Can you imagine? I ask my beloved, and my beloved says, if you ask, you must surely need. Now, of course, I don't need to tell you that you don't take advantage of that, and that you have to ask carefully. You have to clarify your need. Of course, we take that as a given, right? Obviously, this is not a caricature, but just to accomplish that level of, if you ask, you must surely need in your personal life with your own circle of beloveds, that's unimaginable. But can you imagine if you could take it farther? If you go deeper? Now stay with me, okay? So I want to read you a text that we've also read before years back, but this text is about who is in your circle of, if you ask, you must surely need. So writes Abraham Cook, he writes, and what he calls the fourfold song. And I'm reading it off my phone. He writes, and maybe, Krista, you can put it in the chat box. Or maybe you did that already. Okay, all right, take a look. It's in the chat box. There is a one who sings the song of his soul. And in her soul, she finds it all, full, complete spiritual satisfaction. So I want to call that egocentric intimacy, and not egocentric in a negative way. It's beautiful, right? When you've got it going on, when it's working with your partner, your beloved, your friends, your relatives, your evolutionary family, and you can actually hold that and have deep, profound relationships, and you look at each other in the eye, and the response you get is, if you ask, you must surely need. That's an insanely beautiful accomplishment. That's the song of the soul. She sings the song of her soul. But then there's a second song, and there is a one who sings the song of the nation. She leaves the zone of her personal soul, which she doesn't find wide enough. She cannot settle herself in her personal soul in ideal serenity. And so she attaches herself with tender love to the totality of the congregation, shouldn't be humankind, of her tribe. And together with her tribe, she sings her song, she suffers her pains, she takes delight in her hopes, she ponders high and pure ideas about her past and future, she investigates with love and the wisdom of the heart the inner content of her soul. So that's the Scotsman who's in love with Scotland, right? It's the genuine Jesuit, right, Catholic, who's in love with the depth of the church, right? It's the Irishman in love with Ireland, right? It's the American patriot, right? Now, all of these things can be hijacked. You can hijack egocentric intimacy, right? When you ask only someone in your egocentric circle, only for someone in your egocentric circle do you say, your need is my allurement. It's beautiful, but then everyone else is outside the circle. So it becomes the shadow is the mafia family. We take care of the family, right? We take care of, Freddie Corleone, even though he's killed a couple of people, because he's family and Freddie needs our help. And if Freddie asks, he surely needs, we take care of him. That's the mafia family. That's the shadow of the family. That's the shadow of egocentric intimacy. The shadow of the egocentric intimacy, let me get the word straight, is when my family becomes a picture on the wall that I idolize and not a window into reality. And then there's a second song, the double song. Cook calls this the double song, which is the song of my tribe. And oh my God, how many people have sacrificed themselves for their tribe world over? I stand, it's World War I, right? And there's 5 million Germans and 5 million French shooting at each other, and no one will leave, even though very hard to track deserters, because if you don't leave the tribe, that becomes the shadow, right? That becomes the shadow, right? The tribe can become the shadow. Egocentric intimacy can become the shadow. But at its core, it's a second song. I've expanded my circle of intimacy. I'm in a new level of consciousness, which is a wider circle of intimacy, in which I'm willing to look at anyone in the nation and say, we're already friends. We already know each other. And I'm willing to die for you, right? I'm willing to fight and die for you. If you ask, you must surely need. It's beautiful and has shadow. Of course it has shadow. So I've got to do it in its way that's whole and that's beautiful and that's sacred. I've got to actually get to the third song. And the third song is, there is a one, writes Cook, which is the third song, who widens her soul even further until it expands beyond the boundary of the tribe, right? To sing the song of humanity. Her soul is continuously enlarged by the genius of man and woman and the glory of her divine image. He aspires towards man and woman's universal purpose and anticipates higher holification. And from this living source does she draw the entirety of her thoughts and explorations, her aspirations and her visions, right? That's Live Aid Concert. That's We Are the World. That is, if there's someone who's in need any place in the world, then I'm in need. And if you're hungry, I'm hungry. And I actually feel the song of the world, and I'm coming together to write a great library, which is not my pet project. It's not my hobby, little hobby. Let's write a great library hobby. No. I actually feel the need of humanity calling desperately and saying, we need a story of value, which is a global shared story of value. And that's the desperate need to respond to the meta crisis. So I'm going to pour everything I have into this third song. That's the third song, right? Writing the Great Library at the Center for World Philosophy and Religion. That's who we are. We're in this third song, but this third song is not enough itself, which is why Michael Jackson, before he died, did the Earth Song, right? The Earth Song. It's the fourth song. And there is one who rises even further than this. He goes beyond even world-centric consciousness, even beyond we are the world, right? And every human being, and there's no stranger, right? He or she goes even beyond the fourth song. There is a one who rises even further than this in expansion until she joins herself in unity with all of existence in its totality, which means generally I'm probably not going to have a lamb that they bound up and tortured for 3 months, this little lamb, right? Mary's little lamb, so that I could eat it for about 2 minutes and have a succulent lamb chop. I probably won't eat that because actually the lamb is included in my circle of intimacy, right? We're not going to have factory farming that we ignore just as if it didn't exist, right? We're actually going to care for every living being and for beingness itself, for the planet itself, right? The hills are alive with the sound of music. That's the fourth song, right? Right. I've joined myself with totality, writes Cook, with all creatures, with all worlds, and together with all of them, she gives forth song and lives in the promise of this emergent world. But listen to this. And there is a one who sings all of these songs, who rises with all of these songs. Together in one unity, I look to my beloved, I look to my son, I look to my friend, I look to my evolutionary family, and I say, we're together. What do you need? Your need. Your need is my allurement. That's what we're saying. Your need, if you ask, you must surely need. And we're going to add to that. And your need is my allurement. Can you feel that? Your need is my allurement. And then it widens to my whole tribe. If you ask, you must surely need. And your need is my allurement. And then it goes to every human being. If you ask, you must surely need. And your need is my allurement. And then it goes to all of reality, every animal, every cat and every dog, right? Every antelope, every buffalo, right? Everything, everywhere, right? The earth itself, past, present, and future, right? I'm in the evolutionary song, the fourfold song. Your need is my allurement, but all of them, right? And listen to this. There is a one who rises and sings all of these songs, each one of them, egocentric intimacy, world, right? Ethnocentric intimacy, world-centric intimacy, cosmocentric intimacy, but then all of them together, and we play all of their melodies. We pour vitality and life, and each song pours into the other songs, and we feel kol sason v'kol simcha, the sound of jubilance and the sound of joy, the sound of celebration, the sound of exaltation, the sound of rejoicing, the sound of the sacred. We sing the song of the soul. We sing the song of the nation. We sing the song of humankind. We sing the song of the cosmos, and all flow together within her at every time and in every moment. Now listen, my friends, let's open our hearts. This is cosmorotic humanism, the new story of value, the Solomon lineage. And this completedness in its fullness rises to become the song of the sacred, the song of the infinite intimate, the song of humankind, the galactic song of all kinds. In her mighty glory and beauty, in her mighty truth and magnificence, it's the song of the divine. All nations and all galaxies dancing with she as she, a simple song, a double song, a threefold song, a fourfold song, the song of Solomon to the king to whom wholeness belongs, a cosmic song, an intergalactic song, Homo, Amor, cosmorotic humanism, the cosmos, a love story. Huh? It's like, wow, right? Right? Your need is my allurement. If you ask, you must surely need. It's deep, right? It's like to actually feel the quality of another person's need. And we can't fully meet every single need as one human being. Can't be done. I understand that. Of course, that's true. So we need to sing with our families, but we also need to sing with our tribe, and we need to sing with the world, and we need to sing with the cosmos. And those need to be intertextured in our life. And the place that we pour our energy, the place that we fund reality in all dimensions of funding, right? With our heart, with our soul, with our currencies of Eros and all kinds, where we place our time, right? How we play, with whom we play. That's everything, right? It's like crazy, right? Is that crazy? It's about need. It's about the dignity of need. Need discloses reality. Need discloses value. What do I really? What is the utter insane joy of being needed? We'll talk about that next week. But I hope we clarified today something of what we mean by need. It's about the evolution of need, right? The evolution, the emergence of Homo, Amor is the movement of the statement, your need is my allurement, from egocentric intimacy, me and my family, to ethnocentric intimacy, your need is my allurement, my whole tribe, to world-centric intimacy, to cosmocentric intimacy. That's the evolution of love. Do you get that? When we talk about the evolution of love, it's not a trite phrase, it's not a banal slogan. We say We are Homo Amor, means we are the Amorous Cosmos in person, and the cosmos is evolving. And who is the cosmos evolving through? It's evolving through me and through thee, through he and she, through we, right? So when I actually experience my own being and becoming, the evolution of love, when I actually expand and deepen my consciousness, I don't just wake up to awareness, right? I actually wake up and grow up, right? And show up into a new level of allurement. My allurement moves from egocentric intimacy to your need is my allurement, ethnocentric intimacy to your need is my allurement. I'm allured, right? Every human being on the planet, and then I'm allured to the cosmos. You can't skip. This is what's so important about the fifth thing that the cosmos said. You can't skip. You can't basically ignore your evolutionary family. And I'm totally for the tribe. You can't ignore the tribe, and I'm universal. It doesn't work, right? For example, I'll just give you one example in the United States, right? The liberal world, the neoliberal world refused to be patriotic about America, right? America, right? Western, right? America's got to go. Let's burn flags, right? And it lost its actual sense of a healthy, sacred patriotism. And the result always then is the emergence of a patriotism, right? Which is flawed, corrupt, of a different kind. Where actually Make America Great Again, MAGA, right, becomes an ethnocentric regressive, as opposed to let's make America great again as part of making the world great again, as part of making the galaxy great again, right? It becomes an alienated, right, and tragic fall. But if the liberal says, well, how did that happen? You stare, no, because the liberal world basically bypassed, just one example, ethnocentric delight, celebration, right? The sense of bashing American being the evil empire that animated, right, neoliberal education was shocking. And of course, it gave us a corrupt version in many ways, right, of Make America Great Again. And the reason people were excited about Make America Great Again, because it's a deep, real need in the soul. I need to be able to have ethnocentric intimacy, right? I need to be Irish and in love with Ireland, but then Make America Great Again and being madly in love with Ireland needs to be a chapter and verse story, right, in the wider global love story. And then the global love story needs to be a chapter and verse wider story in the galactic love story. And the galactic love story is coming soon, right? It's a second away. So it means we need a story which is not a good cycle. No, we need a cosmological love story, a cosmocentric love story that applies throughout cosmos, that lives and breathes in us. We become the cosmoerotic universe in person. And that means that we feel need. We feel need. And need's not something that's in the way. I got to address some needs and then I'm going to have a good day. No, addressing needs, being needed, right? The experience of being needed and addressing needs and clarifying need, that is the whole story. That's the main act. That's what the whole thing is about. It's all about that. That's the text we looked at last week. What was created? Need itself. The utter radical dignity and divinity of need. So that's step two. And we're going to take this an insane step further next week. It's going to go all the way home next week. And if you have friends, if you don't have friends, we can talk about that. We can work with that's important also. But if you do have friends, we'll help you make friends. We all need to make friends. People who have not been here before, you can come next week and start next week. You can jump in, right? If you'd like to send friends an earlier, like today, so they can get today and last week, that's great. It's a 3-part series on need, but you can come in next week. And we need to do this. We need to completely transform our relationship to need. Does that make sense? Oh my God, we need to do this. Crazy, crazy, crazy delight.